Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. Glad to be back with you. We're going to continue reading in our book today, The Long Winter by Laura Ingalls Wilder. We're on chapter 15 today, No Trains. Remember, during the night, a blizzard came up again. It was not worth getting up in the morning. The daylight was dim, the windows were white, and so were the nails on the roof. Another blizzard was roaring, screaming and swishing around the house. There would be no school. Laura lay sluggish and half awake. She would rather sleep than wake up on such a day. But Ma called, "Good morning, girls. Time to get up." Quickly, because of the cold, Laura put on her dress and shoes and went downstairs. "Why, what's the trouble, Laura?" Ma asked, looking up from the stove. Laura almost wailed. That's like crying. "Oh, Ma, how can I ever teach school and help send Mary to college? How can I ever amount to anything if I can only get one day of school at a time?" "Now, Laura," Ma said kindly, "you must not be so easily discouraged. A few blizzards, more or less, can make no difference. We will hurry and get the work done so you can study. There's enough figuring in your arithmetic to keep you busy for a good many days, and you can do as much of it as you want. Nothing will keep you from learning." Laura asked, "Why is the table here in the kitchen?" "The table left hardly any room to move about." "Pa didn't build a fire in the heater this morning," Ma answered. They heard Pa stomping in the lean-to, and Laura opened the door for him. He looked sober. The little milk pail was frozen solid. "This is the worst yet, I do believe," Pa said while he held his stiff hands over the stove. "I didn't start the fire in the heater, Carolyn. Our coal is running low, and this storm will likely block the trains for some time more." "I thought as much when I saw you hadn't built the fire," Ma answered, "so I moved the table in here. We'll keep the middle door shut, and the cook stove warms this room nicely." "I'll go over to Fuller's right after breakfast," said Pa. He ate his breakfast quickly, and while he was putting on his wraps, again Ma went upstairs. She brought down her little red Moroccan pocketbook, with the shiny, smooth mother-of-pearl sides and the steel clasps in which she kept Mary's college money. Pa slowly put his hand out and he took it. Then he cleared his throat and said, "Mary, it may be that the town's running short of supplies. If the lumber yard and the stores are putting their prices up high." He did not go on, and Mary said, "Ma has my college money put away. You could spend some of that." "If I do, Mary, you can depend on me paying it all back," Pa promised. After he'd gone, After he had gone, Laura brought Mary's rocking chair from the cold front room and set it to warm before the open fire in the oven. As soon as Mary sat in it, Grace climbed up onto her lap. "I'll be warm too," Grace said. "You're a big girl now and too heavy," Ma objected. But Mary said quickly, "Oh no, Grace, I like to hold you, even if you are a big 3-year-old. The room was so crowded that Laura could hardly wash the dishes without bumping into some sharp edge. While Ma was making the beds in the upstairs cold, Laura polished the stove and cleaned the lamp chimney. Now, you may not know, they were probably using kerosene lamps or oil lamps. And so it would have a bowl at the bottom that was closed, and there would be the oil in it. Then up through that would come a wick where the oil could seep up there, and then there would be a fire, but they'd have to put a little, they called it a chimney, over it. And they were in different shapes, the chimneys, but they were made of glass, And from the smoke, they could get smoky and not so bright, so they had to clean them. Let's see. Then she unscrewed the brass chimney holder and filled the lamp carefully with kerosene. The last clear drop poured out from the spout of the kerosene can. "Oh, we didn't tell Pa to get kerosene," Laura exclaimed before she thought. "Don't we have kerosene?" Carrie gasped, turning around quickly from the cupboard where she was putting away the dishes. Her eyes were frightened. "My goodness, yes! I filled the lamp brim full," Laura answered. "Now I'll sweep the floor and you dust." All the work was done when Ma came downstairs. "The wind is fairly rocking the house up there," she told them, shivering by the stove. "How nicely you've done everything, Laura and Carrie," she smiled. Pa had not come back, but surely he would not be lost, not in town. Laura brought her books and slate to the table, close to Mary in her rocking chair. The light was poor, but Ma did not light the lamp. Laura read the arithmetic problems one by one to Mary and did them on her slate while Mary solved them in her head. They worked each problem backward to make sure they had the correct answer. Slowly they worked lesson after lesson, and as Maud said, there were many more to come. At last they heard Pa coming through the front door. His overcoat and cap were frozen white with snow, and he carried a snowy package. He thawed by the stove, and when he could speak, he said, "I didn't use your college money, Mary." "There's no coal at the lumber yard," he went on. "People burned so much in this cold weather, and Ellie didn't have that much on hand. He's selling lumber to burn now, but we can't afford to burn lumber at $50 1,000. "People are foolish to pay it," Ma said gently. "Trains are bound to get here before long." "There's no more kerosene in town," Pa said, "and no meat. The stores are sold out of pretty nearly everything. I got 2 pounds of tea, Carolyn, before they ran out of that. So we'll have our little bit of tea till the trains come through. There's nothing like a good cup of tea in cold weather," said Ma, "and the lamp is full. That's enough kerosene to keep quite a while if we go to bed early to save the coal. I'm so glad you thought to get the tea. We would sure miss that." Slowly Pa grew warm, and without saying anything more, he sat down by the window to read the Chicago Interior Ocean, which had come in the last mail. "By the way," he said, looking up, "school is closed until coal comes." "We can study by ourselves," Laura said stoutly. She and Mary murmured to each other over the arithmetic problems. Carrie studied the speller while Ma worked at her mending, and Pa silently read the paper. The blizzard grew worse. It was by far the most violent blizzard that they had ever heard. The room grew colder. There was no heat from the front room to help the cook stove. The cold had crept into the front room and was sneaking in under the door. Beneath the lean-to door it was crawling in too. Ma brought the braided rugs from the front room and laid them folded tight against the bottom of the doors. At noon, Pa went to the stable. The stock did not need feeding at noon, but he went out to see that the horses, cow, and the big calf were still safely sheltered. He went out again mid-afternoon, so maybe like 3 o'clock. "Animals need a lot of feed to keep them warm in such cold," he explained to Ma. The blizzard is worse than it was, and I had to tussle this morning to get hay into the stable in these winds. I couldn't do it if the haystack wasn't right against the door. Another good thing, the snowdrifts are gone. They've been scoured away down to bare ground." The storm howled even louder when he went out into it, and a blast of cold came through the lean-to though Ma had pushed the folded rug against the inner door as soon as Pa shut it. Mary was braiding a new rug. She had cut worn-out woolen cloths into strips, and Ma had put each color in a separate box. Mary kept the boxes in order and remembered where each color was. She was braiding the rag strips together in a long braid that coiled down in a pile beside her. When she came to the end of a strip, she chose the color she wanted and sewed it on. Now and then she felt the growing pile. "I do believe I've done nearly enough," she said. "I'll be ready for you to sew the rug tomorrow, Laura." "I wanted to finish this lace first," Laura objected, "and these storms keep making it so dark I can hardly see to count the stitches." "The dark doesn't bother me," Mary answered cheerfully. "I can see with my fingers." Laura was almost ashamed of being impatient. "I'll sew your rug whenever you're ready," she said willingly. Pa was gone a long time. Ma set the supper back to keep warm. She did not light the lamp, and they all sat thinking that the clothesline would guide Pa through the blizzard. "Come, girls, come," Ma said, rousing herself. "Mary, you start a song, and we'll sing away the time until Pa comes." So they sang together in the dark until Pa came. There was lamplight at supper, but Ma told Laura to leave the dishes unwashed. They must all go to bed quickly to save the kerosene and the coal. Only Pa and Ma got up next morning at chore time. "You girls stay in bed and keep warm as long as you like," Ma said, and Laura did not get up until 9 o'clock. The cold was pressing on the house and seeping in, rising higher and higher, and the ceaseless noise and the dust seemed to hold time still. Laura and Mary and Carrie studied their lessons. Laura sewed the rag braid into a round rug and laid it heavily over Mary's lap so Mary could see it with her fingers. The rug made this day different from the day before, but Laura felt that it was the same day over again, and they sang again in the dark until Pa came and ate the supper of potatoes and bread with dried applesauce and tea, and left the dishes unwashed and went to bed at once to save the kerosene and the coal. Another day was the same. The blizzard winds did not stop roaring and shrieking. The swishing snow did not stop swishing. The noise in the dark and the cold, they would never end. But suddenly they did end. The blizzard winds stopped. It was late the third afternoon. Laura blew and scraped at the frost on the window pane till through the peephole she could see snow scuttling down Main Street, low to the ground before a straight wind. A red dish light shone in the blowing snow from the setting sun. The sky was clear and cold. Then the rosy light faded. The snow was blowing gray-white, and the steady wind blew harder. Pa came in from doing the chores. "Tomorrow I must haul hay," he said. "But now I've going across to Fuller's to find out if anybody but us is alive in this blamed town. Here for 3 whole days, and we haven't been able to see a light nor smoke, not a sign of a living soul. What's the good of a town if a fellow can't get any good of it?" "Supper's almost ready, Charles," Ma said. "I'll be back in a jiffy," Pa told her. He came back a few minutes later asking, "Supper ready?" Ma was dishing it up and Laura setting the chairs to the table. "Everything's all right in town," Pa said, "and word from the depot is that they'll start work tomorrow morning on that big cut this side of Tracy." "How long will it take for the train to get through?" Laura asked. "Can't tell," Pa replied. "That one clear day we had they cleared it out, ready to come through the next day. But they shoveled the snow up both sides of the cut, and now it's packed full, clear to the top of the banks. So here is where they cut through a mountain, right? And they shoveled the snow up over the bank on both sides. Up, up, up. And then when the next blizzard came, it filled all the way up to there. So now they've got a long, long ways to go down. Something like 30 feet deep of snow, frozen solid. They've got to dig out now. That won't take long in pleasant weather, Ma said. Surely we're bound to have that. We've already had more and worse storms than we had all of last winter. Well, Ma's hopeful. And you know what? When we have problems that come up, now they may not be near as serious as they were having, because they're running out of supplies in town and at their own house. But if we try to look for the very best at everything, keep our hope up, depend on God, we know we'll be okay then. Well, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house and out of your house, in the day and in the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Give me a thumbs up. That encourages me. Good night.